Welcome in, everyone. This is our weekly flow alerts recap for the week of 7/22/2024 to 7/26/2024. Little quieter week for us with the heavy earnings coming in, some economic data towards the end of the week. So we didn't have a huge list like we typically do, so it's going to be a little shorter video. First up here, just kind of like to show everybody the postings here, just so everybody knows, obviously everything's posted, not just made up. So our first fruit is actually the 23rd this week. So just kind of some stuff here. All the postings, everything's posted, no edits. Bid side stuff, didn't have anything for bid side this week. A couple ETF flows here. So we will cover these and kind of go over how the flow looked. So first up, we had, Tuesday was our first day that we had something good come in. We had HE 17.5 call on the 8/2 expiration. So looking at the flow, how that came in, this is a really nice example. And we're going to start here and go to Tuesday the 22nd. Here's where our flow came in. You can see we had 1,000 contracts come in here, about 57,000 on that candle for premium. Average was 0.56. And looking at the flow here, flow was looking perfect how we typically like to see it. You can see that IV kind of staying high here. IV starting to kind of even creep up a little bit after that. Sitting at that ask side all the way up here as well. And when we look at this, so we're going to go back to the 23rd here, so your 23rd. You can see that net call premium was starting to come up a little bit there also. So I can also see that here. And the flow actually, and a way to be able to tell this is an opening trade. You can see we had 81 open interest on there at the time. And we had the 1,000 contracts come in. So kind of just based off math there, we know it's an opening trade. And we didn't have any multi-leg there also, which is a nice sign. And with that net call premium spiking, another good sign. And moving this out to, we'll move it out to Wednesday. Actually, we'll do it to Friday and make it look a little better like this. So this is a perfect example of an exit as well. So again, here's our candle. You can see that candle volume of 1,071. And these contracts moving up here. And these contracts hit a high after this whale came in of 103 on the 25th. They did exit on the 24th at 0.70. So these contracts did have a max return of 83.93%. 0.56 to 103, 83%, and that whale exited at 70. So perfect example of an exit here. Again, you can see kind of just by doing a look here that here's your entry, and then looking here, here's about 1,000 contracts on that candle volume. So this whale, about 60,000 to 70,000, made about 10,000 there. And you can see this reflect back here. So we had that volume coming on the 24th. And we can see that drop in open interest the next day. So this whale did trim some, and looks like some contracts may have got passed off. So it wasn't a full closure. Somebody probably bought the contracts. But this is a good example of kind of seeing that visual where that whale can be exiting. So good trade there. And moving on, we had up next SPY 816 576 call. Here's your entry, and this whale's down a little bit right now. We had a candle of 9,545 contracts come in at about 113 for the average fill. They only hit 120 on the day, so not a big return at all on those yet, but still have 21 days left on these. And you can see that whale, they're at about 24 right now. So whale's down. Could be waiting on FOMC next week. Don't know 100%. But let's look at the flow. This was actually really good textbook flow. So pulling up the flow feed here. So you can see where that whale starts to kind of come in here. Can see some hits right here. Not part of this timestamp, so we don't know 100%, but can start seeing that IV increasing. Drops a little bit right here, but we're still sitting at that ask side. Following this up, we can continue to see that IV increase, that spot price increase, and still kind of staying spiked there. Again, doesn't always mean they're going to work out. Don't know 100% what the whales are looking for. But again, 21 days on here, a lot can happen within that time frame. Whale could be looking at earnings, could be looking at economic data coming out next week, FOMC. So this was currently right now, this would be our loser for the week as of right now, which we can come back and recap. But right now, and kind of looking at this too, looking at that net premium during the time, so 23rd, kind of flat. That net put premium was kind of spiking, but then we did have that drop off here. So interesting to see what happens with this one. Moving on, next we had the 925.29 puts, and this is another good example of flow. Here we are on, and I'm going to bump this back down to the 23rd so we can get a better view. So 23rd, this whale exited intraday. This is a very clean exit as well. You can see that whale come in here, 4,500 contracts there, followed by another 1,000. We'll say 5,500 contracts. You look at this candle, 5,500 contracts. This is a clean entry and exit same day, and this whale actually exited after hours. I am Central Time, so this is why it's 3:10, 3:15. With the SPY, you can obviously buy and sell contracts up to 15 minutes after the bell. And looking at these, so this whale went from 355 and closed these at 391. So this whale closed these at 10%. And it's really interesting because, well, let's touch on the flow first and then I'll show the full part here. So again, IV pretty much staying elevated here, sitting at that spot, jump in the spot price, jump in the IV, and you can see that majority of its ask side flow. And this whale, I'm going to change it to Friday now and come back. Oh, here we go. Oops, okay. This whale closed at 10%. These hit a high of, where are we here? 897 yesterday on the 25th. These contracts ran 152%. These whales closed at 10%. And again, obviously the 25th, we had a pullback in the market that day after Tesla and Google earnings. So whale was probably being smart and cautious, taking profits, just knowing earnings was coming up. But these contracts did max out at at 897. So 355 to 897, 152% max. Whale collected 10% on those. And next up, this next one was not a trade idea. I do like to show everybody for transparency purposes, but we had Google, so this is 100% gamble flow. Earnings flow is always a gamble flow. I'm really big against not playing earnings, but people like seeing earnings flow, but we'll see exactly why you don't play earnings. And here's your whale entry. Had about 3,200 contracts on that one, another 28 there, sitting at about roughly that 8,000, which you can see here. And even if you visually would stack these contracts on top, roughly the same size, this whale was actually up roughly 10% before close. This whale sold these at a loss. This whale was at almost 2 million and sold those for an $800,000 loss. That is why you don't play earnings. You can have all the data points in the world and something can be off the guidance. Perfect example of a whale missing on earnings, which again, not a huge fan of playing. So moving on now, we had a Netflix put, which came in on the 25th. Whale looks to still be in, and these contracts did make a good move intraday. Again, you can kind of see based off that volume and open interest here. This is an opening trade, and if you have questions, because that open interest is a little bigger, can always bump out that day's expiration and kind of see what's going on back here. Can see it's not another big whale or closing half of a position at the ask. So go back to the 3. So here's your whale entry. Again, looking at the flow here. Looking at the flow, IV staying elevated, no changes. All ask side fills. These contracts being filled at 195, about 100,000 on that candle. And these hitting a high of 280 yesterday, hitting a high of 240 today. So even if you did swing these, still profit. But intraday, these ran from 195 to 280. Spreads were a little wider on here, so if you got to fill towards a bid, probably a little better there. About 43% on those. And looking at that net premium yesterday, we had that net put premium was kind of spiking in the morning, which looked good. Then we did have kind of a little rally, and then little dump on that net call premium today. Seeing that put volume pick up a little bit here. But other than that, this would have been a nice intraday scalp. Looks like the whale's still in. Probably wouldn't chase this now, but again, do what you want with the knowledge there. And moving on now, same day, 7:25, we had a whale come in on. I'm going to actually, because this whale closed intraday, we had the call on the 8-1-551 calls. First whale entry here. And again, you can see that jump in IV coming up here. Perfect textbook spike there. That spot staying at that ask side here. Having it even come above the ask a little bit here with a jump in IV. Good sign there. And then we also had the whale kind of come in a little bit after. So again, combining both of these, about 3,000 contracts. Here's your bid side whale, 3,000 contracts. Which, when we look at the bid side, you can see that spot starting to, or the IV decreasing, which signals sellers for the most part. IV decreasing, that spot price decreasing. This is that whale selling. And again, you can see these dropping all the way down to 105 today. After hitting the whale closing at 247, these did hit a high of 342, so not almost 100%, 98% on those ones. So again, another good find there. And today we had a firm. This one hasn't really made a move yet, sitting about break even. Here's our whale. 74.19. Let me go back one. So you can see that big jump in the IV there. Sitting at the spot price. So that spot price there. And coming back down, let me get back to where the whale started. Again, that spike in that IV. That ask side spot there. Signs of a buyer. Again, can't 100% say it, but kind of get the idea. And looking at the flow coming after, still spiking in that IV, and that spot is increasing here a bit still too. So again, looking at this one, hasn't really made a huge move yet. 34, I mean, sitting about break even a little bit right now. Whale has next week's expiration. We'll see what happens on that one. Otherwise, that's all I got for this week. Again, quieter week this week. Being more cautious with earnings, GDP and PCE yesterday and today. Next week will probably be another cautious week just with all the earnings. I mean, mega caps are reporting. We have FOMC, non-farm payrolls, unemployment rate, a lot of job data jolts next week. So again, be cautious if you're trading next week. It's going to be a very volatile week. Have a great weekend, everyone.